Well, welcome to episode number 92 of According to Flint, the podcast. 92, of course, the year this man was born, almost graduated high school. 92. He is one of the voices of the PBR through PBR teams through this past weekend, through several different elements of the PBR World Finals weekend. And we thought we would have a little PBR World Finals 2-week recap. It's the one and only Chris Rankin. You know what I love, Chris? You know what I love?
What's that?
I love it when you call me Big Papa.
You love it when I call you Big Papa.
Okay. You, for somewhere along the way, is it the fact I'm older than everybody else that people were calling me Pop, or my girls call me Pops, and all of a sudden you just start calling me Pop?
I called you Papa because you and Shelby were telling the story of what's the dog's name?
Bugsy.
Bugsy.
Yeah.
Bugsy. You said Bugsy called you Papa, so I started calling you Papa ever since then.
I love it when you call me Big Papa.
And then you put Big on front of it, and then you started singing the weird song to really make it awkward.
It is kind of awkward. Yeah. I do sometimes call you, and I want you to take this as a compliment. I call you the best rodeo announcer that not enough people have heard of. That's a compliment, I think. Because I don't think enough people have heard your work. That's what I think.
Well, yeah, I think it's a compliment, and I appreciate it. It means a lot coming from you or anybody within our close group that's been on the biggest stages that there has been, and I do take it as a compliment. So you're not hurting my feelings today.
Well, good. And what I mean by that, I remember going to the first place I heard you. Did you do the junior high finals in Gallup? Were you in Gallup, New Mexico?
I sure did.
Yeah. When I sang I think I sang the Canadian anthem there.
Yes, that was one of the first times that you did sing the Canadian anthem.
Well, not in public. In public.
Then, right.
Yeah.
Right. And as your kids went through school, you continued to sing for us at times.
Maybe just not even on request. But my cousin Drew Stewart, Garrett Jurgen was at a couple. There was a rotation of announcers that I thought really, in that scheme of the whole week of high school national finals, junior high national finals, this group of gluttons for punishment, because I was always amazed at you guys that announced the junior high and high school rodeo finals, what you did to keep the performances moving. If people don't know, it is a lot. Two arenas going on at the same time, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours at night. You have spent a lot of time at those, but continue to contribute. There's something rewarding about that. I get the feeling for you.
Oh, without a doubt there is. I mean, I've been at the National Junior High Finals every year except for the very first year that it was created. I've only been at the National High School Finals probably the last 10 or 11 years. But it's just like, I'm going to use Friday night, and I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later on. Mm-hmm. Friday night at Kid Rock's Rockin' Rodeo, the biggest star that night to me was young Mackenzie Mays from Scroggins, Texas, the barrel racer that was on Bobby Mote's team, the Free Riders. Mm-hmm. Well, what's rewarding for me is I remember Mackenzie Mays since she was in Texas junior high through Texas high school, and now getting to watch them compete on the biggest stage. I remember when Tough Cooper was the national junior high champion. I remember when Sage Kimsey was the national president for the junior high division of the NHSRA. So getting the opportunity to see all of them whenever they were kids, before they were anybody, to see them on the biggest stages now, it's rewarding for me. And it's so cool to get to watch them grow up and mature and see how they just handle themselves whenever they are in the public's eye, and different ways the public looks at them, because I know them from the time that they were little kids, and I know better. I know where their heart is, and I know how really they are as a person. So that's what keeps me going back. And guess what? I'm going to go back this year too.
Well, and that's your relationship with my daughters comes from there. My daughter was the high school national president. Yes. They went all the way through it too. So stay on that topic though. We don't have to go chronological, because the Kid Rock Rockin' Rodeo, produced by PBR, its own event. You didn't think the true star of that night was the original Bo Duke driving in Kid Rock in his General Lee Tesla pickup?
Hey, that was pretty doggone cool. I mean, even whenever they went out of the arena, I was like, man, did you see Bo Duke? Bo Duke was actually driving the new form of the General Lee. But no, that was Jelly Roll was pretty high on my bucket list to see too. That I didn't know was gonna be there until then.
You didn't? No, you're not in the right meetings, I guess.
No, I didn't know he was gonna be there until rehearsals.
Yeah. I'm not sure that the rehearsals of the opening weren't the most unique special part. We were Kid Rock performing the opening for people watching because people don't understand. You can't really televise a concert because there's licensing stuff and we were on a sports channel.
Right.
But yeah, he came out in the back of this General Lee pickup and they got on a little stage right in front of us, like here to there. And they rehearsed it two or three times. You know, what stood out to me was that Kid Rock did that entire rehearsal as if that place was packed plumb full. Successful people practice perfect, don't they?
Yeah, and Garrett was telling me whenever I got to the building that day, he said, "You're not going to believe this opening." Not only did they rehearse that and practice that afternoon that we watched, they rehearsed it and practiced it the night before as well. So they rehearsed and practiced that opening on 5 different occasions. The part to me was for anybody who thinks Kid Rock didn't have a lot of influence on what happened at Kid Rock's Rock and Rodeo, they should have been there for the rehearsal because it was intense. They had some little technical difficulties at first, and Kid Rock let all of the production team know that they better get it fixed and they better get it fixed now, or there was going to be big problems. And it was cool to get to watch just BB to be there for the rehearsal to see how intense that he was and how excited he was about the entire night's festivities.
Did he say it like that, or were there words mixed in the explanation of "you better get it fixed"?
There was a lot of words mixed in that I know we can't say right now.
Why? He said them in the concert after. What are you worried about?
Hey, it's your audience, pal. It's not mine.
Yeah. We'll refrain. I think it's another one of those events, the Kid Rock Rodeo, that seeing it in the live arena with Two Barrel Racer, where we crack out when we finally ran a run at 8:45 at night or whatever it was. And it on purpose consciously picked the barrel racing to be first because it was so unique. And the very first race is nose to nose, a horse race, 2 patterns going on at the same time. And you could just hear the fans going, what the hell's going on here? It's one of those ones in arena. Probably that's where you got to get the experience for that.
There was so much uncertainty going into this about how it was gonna go down. What were we gonna see? It was total. Whoever came up with the idea of starting with the barrel racing is the genius behind the whole ordeal, because that was the absolute very best event that we could start with was the barrel racing. And you're right, it was head-to-head racing, and it was a true Kentucky Derby style horse race all the way through the pattern. But it wasn't just that way in the first game. It was that way in the first 3 games. And then we got into the second round with only 4 teams. It stayed a horse race all the way through until we got to the end of the night in the barrel racing. But it was truly something to see.
Did that
the tie down and the breakaway roping to me? Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, did that girl ride the same horse both times that won the barrel racing? She did, didn't she?
Yes. That horse. Yes. That horse made 3 runs inside of AT&T Stadium that
night. Man. And they were all worried about it. And she just said, no, screw it. We can do it. Pretty small pattern in a big place. I thought so. My daughter, Shelby, told me that. And I was not watching close enough. I was running around. That's admirable. That's knowing your horse. right there. That's knowing exactly what your horse can do.
Right. You know, I went back and I thought that originally. I said that in the recap at the end of the show that she should have been the MVP for the free riders with, I mean, she won the game for them. She won 2 brackets for them in the head-to-head format as well. And I had said that at the end, and I was a little bit uncertain after I said it. I said, man, I wasn't really 100% for sure, but I did get home and I went back and I've seen the replay and where the assistant coach for their team, Lindsey Rosser Sumter, had said that was their 3rd run inside of there. And I was pretty sure, but I wasn't total set on that was the case, but it was in fact the true story.
So for people who say you can't make these girls make 1 run or 2 runs in one day, she made 3 within 2.5 hours.
She made
3. Yeah. Huh.
And how long?
Hey, however, so I brought up when we finally made our first run, because the ticketed start time to Kid Rocks was 7:45. We held for a good 12 minutes because the crowd was coming in, and we held because we wanted everybody to see the opening. By the time we ran the first barrel, it was 8:45, wasn't it? 8:40.
Oh, at least.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, basically 3 hours, a little over 3 hours of rodeo. And people were like, I was there all day. If you went to the American and said that was the greatest rodeo ever, but bitched because the Kid Rock rodeo was too long, your vision of reality is skewed. That's what I say. Because I'm sorry, Chris, my ass hurt at the American, as great as it was. I know, but you know what I mean.
Oh, I'm with you 100%. I mean, we were there from 9:30, 10 a.m. And whenever I left AT&T Stadium that night, I think it was 2 a.m. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't want to leave. I didn't go to bed that night, and I went straight back to the hotel. But I didn't go to sleep that night till 3:30, 4 a.m. because I was still on cloud 9 like, what in the hell did I just see? I mean, just replayed it all night long in my own mind because I had been to Joe Beaver's ropings and announced them earlier on in my career, and he always did the Brody Beaver shootout, and it was a red light, green light style start at his jackpot. Well, so the only athletes and contestants that had ever seen it was a handful of the tie down ropers and a handful of breakaway ropers that have gone to his jackpot, to his youth jackpot ropings. I don't know of a barrel racing anywhere in the world that's ever done that. I don't know of a team roping. And I damn sure don't know of anybody in the steer wrestling trying it before.
My mom will tell you that there was a time at the Calgary Stampede, they did team rodeo, and everybody had to go to the right barrel first because they shared the middle barrel. So there was 3 across the front and shared it, and they were on things that bounced back up if they tipped it. And so, and then like that. So yes, my mom she's watching this right now, probably going like this. Okay. That's So do you think you started to say it, you thought the calf rope and breakaway rope were the 2 best? Is that what you thought?
I just think they were more familiarized with that type of start. Because there was a lot of the athletes there that go to Joe's ropings that have been through that before. I just think that they were probably a little bit more aware of what was going on. The steer wrestling still to this day, I think back to earlier that day when we were all standing there at front of house and we were watching them run stock through and just get a couple trial runs down. Remember how crazy it was in this run through? And it didn't disappoint anyone when we ran the first 2 rounds of steer wrestling through either.
When there's a 45-second time limit, and when they rode by their steers and then started chasing them around the arena amongst each other, that was freaking awesome. It was awesome. I love the team roping.
Things got
the way
real
real
quick.
Yeah. The reason I like the calf roping team roping was it's a little longer. Thank you, Logan. Look at what look. That's service right there. It was a little longer run. There was a little more to it. Like the calf ropers could almost glance up when they tied their calf and see, There was just more
Yep.
factors that they could fumble around to make let the other guy catch up anyway. But the overriding impression as part of why I had you on this show today
Yep.
was it was really cool and still rodeo. It was a match.
It was a head-to-head matchup. It was still the same fundamentals, the same that we see in every rodeo across the country. The only thing is it was two runs going on simultaneously, and the start was not whenever you feel comfortable, nod your head. It was true, just like a drag race, red lights, one red, two red, yellow, green, and the gate was opening. There wasn't somebody there to opening it.
Yeah,
It
it was all
opened on
programmed.
green.
don't
That's
hey
right. And it was
don't
time to go whenever it came.
don't forget when the sequence started, it was blue light in the music. And people would stop their conversations. There was people in suites and they'd be drinking, and when it'd go, they'd all stop and walk because that was a cue. Anyway, lots of things that if fans watching this are curious, or I don't know if you know this, Christopher, but there's some naysayers in the rodeo world. I don't know. I don't know if you know, but it was pretty cool. It was fun.
Well, about that, I'm not gonna lie. I've looked a lot on social media the last couple of days just to see what the naysayers had to say about it, and I haven't found a whole lot of them yet. Now, I'm sure by the time this comes out, and once they hear this, they'll all take to it. But the biggest thing that I've heard about it is how long it was.
Mm-hmm.
But even you just brought something to my attention that I forgot. We did hold doors for 15 minutes. So we did not start at 7:45 like we should have. So now that I think back, we only ran over about 30 minutes since we
Mm-hmm.
did hold the doors.
I know
So for the
things.
naysayers that are saying it was too long, yeah, yeah.
That's what I should have that shirt that says I drink bourbon and know things. Because that's you and me, old fashions, right?
Hey, I'll show you how big of a Kid Rock and Rodeo fan I am. Bam.
You're a you're a trooper. I did not get one of those shirts. That's you know what that is? That's
Hey,
bullshit. That's bullshit, man. I got to get one.
I had my wife on the concourse and she sent me a text, said, "Do you want a shirt?" I'm like, damn right I do. I don't normally get shirts to events, but I wanted one for this one.
I'm gonna get one. Now I'm jealous because that's what I should be wearing on my live broadcast. Damn it. No, that's okay. All right. Well, thanks for all right. Thanks for coming, Chris. No, covered Kid Rock's rodeo. I probably did come to where I wanted to spend more time on that because it was so unique. But there was a lot of question marks going in, Cowtown Coliseum, PBR World Finals were in Cowtown Coliseum. But we wanted to make it kind of almost a VIP experience where it was small. There was a couple thousand people there. And the eliminations, there was 45 to start, taking 25 to the second weekend. I see it. I think I see it now. You came in and announced the redemptions. So yeah, we took the 15, we took 20 from the first weekend right to AT&T, and then Wednesday, Thursday, they had to ride, and we took 5 from there out of these redemption rounds. The redemption rounds were kind of fun because it was like you get 2 chances here. You got to ride something to get to ride in the big stadium on the big stage. It was interesting. I didn't mind it.
I didn't mind it either. I mean, yeah, it was a new format. Yeah, it was different. It was outside of the box, but it gave guys that had competed on the Monster Energy Unleash the Beast this season a second opportunity to not be given a opportunity. They had to perform. They had to ride their way into AT&T Stadium. Um, the next part of it was the invites. Yeah, there was invites that went out to the champion at Rodeo Corpus Christi, which he declined. There was also an invitation that went out to the world champion of the PRCA. He declined, of course, because he is still injured. So who filled those spots? were guys that didn't make the World Finals that had still been to Unleash the Beast events, that had been to PBR events all season long. But it also let us bring in some different invites, some more invites, whether it be international invites, to just see how they competed and how they performed on the big stage to make their way in. The cool thing was the five guys that earned their spot. It wasn't new names. It was Daniel Keeping, Bob Mitchell, who had a horrible first weekend, but looked like nothing could throw him off at the redemption rounds. And then Mauricio Moreta, another guy that just had a bad start to the finals. And then the two young guns, Shane Scott, the 18-year-old from Oregon, who had been to the Monster Energy Unleash the Beast 2 events prior to the Ride for Redemption, and Jacoy Hale, who is the young man from the Navajo Nation that got the invite to Albuquerque.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool because it gave guys a second opportunity.
It did. Yeah. And the first weekend of the 4 rounds of redemption, or of, they called it straightforward here. And I've said it. The first weekend of the PBR World Finals was called eliminations. And I didn't like that came along kind of before I was on the scene a little. Right. And as far as any influence on decision-making, it carries a negative connotation to it. And it may be called eliminations next year too. But I think the fans were a little confused that it wasn't actually the World Finals, like that it wasn't those guys, but they were riding to not be eliminated. Do you know that? So we get to AT&T Stadium and we had 25 guys. By Sunday, 20, because those 5 redemption guys had to ride a bull Saturday to move on.
Right.
How do I word this and not without being insulting? Do you know the kind of the philosophy around that? Like the big picture? I'm sure you do, but for years you go 7, everybody said, no, it's not 7 go rounds plus a short round anymore. You get to those last 2-3 days and you get a guy that came in 35th in the world and he's 0 for 5, 0 for 6 in the week. You kind of know what's going to happen. And we were plugging through, I hate to say it, last year especially, we were plugging through 10, 12 guys, just waiting to get to the next guys. We're, with all due respect. And this narrowed it down. Like Sunday, it was 20 guys. And they're pretty damn good.
Yeah, I know I was at AT&T and watched it in person on Saturday night, and it truly, like, you didn't wait till you got into the top 15 in the world for the guys that have a legit chance for a gold buckle, or for the guys that legitimately have a chance to win the World Finals. I found myself waiting for each and every guy because all of them were names that anybody who watches the PBR is a fan of or can relate to. And it was just, who's going to win this finals? Because truly, any of the 20 guys that qualified for AT&T, any one of them could have won that finals going into it. It was all names that we have seen for years, guys that have performed and won on the premier level. And it was a who's who for the 2 days of the AT&T Stadium. It wasn't about, oh man, how many buck-offs are we going to have? It was really, you look forward to seeing how many qualified rides you were going to have.
There's been, we talked before we went on the air, people will go, well, they had to ride 2 in a day. I get that. And they were ranked. Listen, old timers, sorry, no comparison at the complete across the board rankness of bucking bulls now compared to 20 years ago. No, I mean, I'm sorry. I was there for those 2. Riding 2 in a day. Unless you were hurt before, nobody sustained any major injuries more than, unless you were already hurt. But riding 2 in one day for that, let's not forget, it was 50 grand a round to win. We gave away 2 checks for 50,000 as well as the placing to ride 2 bulls in a day. You got no problem with it.
No, I can think of 350,000 reasons on why somebody should be excited to get the opportunity to go to AT&T Stadium. I mean, in 350,000, that's just what it paid to win the aggregate. That's what it paid to win the finals. That isn't including what they won in round money. I kind of went back and looked, and Sage won over $400,000 at AT&T Stadium in 2 days. Um, I get that 4 bulls in 2 days, whenever you're getting on the rankest bulls in the world for some, it poses a challenge for them. But still, where else are you going to get to go and compete on that stage for that amount of money?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Sage, didn't he win like $411,000? Something like that
Yep,
in
that's
two
what I.
days.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled for him. I think I think the cool thing, for one, Sage Kimzey's good for business for everyone, whether it's in rodeo or us, because you put a camera in his face and you ask him a question and he's like an analyst. That kid, he has become, not that he wasn't before, he's become such a class act with, and you telling me his kid doesn't know how to get his picture taken? They held that big check and old Steele. He was just like, you know, but good for Sage. I don't know. I always think I'm proud of Sage. I think I've seen him develop through the years. That's why I always think, hey, I always tell him, hey, I'm proud of you. But that guy, he's going to go down, always was going to go down as one of the greats. I think a big win like he just had cements that a little even more. Don't you, in both places?
I agree. There was so many naysayers on whenever he made the decision, and he made the announcement himself that he was going to focus 2024 on a PBR career and a run for a PBR world title. Yeah, injury set him back, but nobody understands how hard he had to work just to get into the back half of the UTB season. And he had to work even harder than that just to qualify for the PBR World Finals,
Mm-hmm.
because there was times he was on the bubble this year. And for him to get all the way to AT&T Stadium, which, think back to Cowtown, the elimination rounds, he almost didn't even get into AT&T. He rode one bull the final day of eliminations to get into AT&T. Well, that was all of the naysayers that were starting. Oh, look, we knew he couldn't get it done. He just put a huge exclamation point on why he belongs anywhere he wants to go if it involves riding bulls.
Yeah, true. I agree. That was interesting. He needed a ride on Sunday afternoon and got it and snuck in there, which again, we're sitting here talking about it. So there must be something about eliminations, redemptions. I don't know. I get it, because I've been on both sides of this. Nobody's entitled to compete for that money, and you have that chance the first weekend. Some will say, well, that's not fair. And I always say fairs are for pigs with ribbons. I mean, it's a professional, it's really a progressive. The AT&T Stadium came through for us. I love the play into half the stadium, cutting it in half, playing one side. It feels like Calgary Stampede or whatever. I love that. But, Saturday night of World Finals caught up, had almost as many people as a Kid Rock Rodeo. We were 23,000, something like that. Biggest crowds ever at a World Finals. That place is a destination in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, whenever I walked in that building for the first time on the Thursday before Kid Rocks, when we went to some meetings, that was the first time that I had ever been on the floor of AT&T Stadium, and the second time I'd ever been in that building. The first time was I went there to watch a PBR Last Cowboy Standing as a ticket buyer. But once I got in there in a whole different scenario, whole different configuration on how it was set up, it was like, man, this should be put on somebody's bucket list to go. I know there's a lot of people that say, oh, the PBR final should still be in Vegas. You haven't been to AT&T Stadium yet to watch a PBR World Finals then, because you can put 30, 40,000 people in there if you want to, and you put 30,000 people in there. It was so electric, and man, I can't even use the terms that I want to use right now for how I thought it was. And I sat in the stands and watched Saturday night because I wanted to see what it was like for a ticket buyer. I will say that screen is so big, it's hard to look at the arena floor and watch it live without watching that big giant screen.
I was sitting where the announcers stand, front of house.
Right.
And I was sitting with Larry, the cable guy, name drop right there. He was sitting in the stool beside me on Sunday. We were sitting right across from the chutes watching the screen because halfway through, Larry, the cable guy, said to me, my neck hasn't felt like this since I spent too much time in the strip joint in 1989. So I know exactly what that's like. Sniffer's row. That's what he called
Well,
it.
I know how he
Sniffer's
felt.
row.
I know how he felt because Friday night at Kid Rock's Rockin' Rodeo, my neck had a crick in it the next morning from looking up at that screen. So I know what you're talking about.
You've been around these guys. Number one, John Crimber. I think everybody gets, he's very popular. He's very dynamic, great personality, young looking, but handles media so well. John Crimber, people have kind of figured that out, and so talented and flashes up. People argue with scores with him, but he flashes them up like Chris Shivers and JB Mooney did. And it is a judged event. It's a judged event. But I will say, through all my years of Brazilian riders, Cassio Diaz is the most, by far, the most popular non-English speaking Brazilian rider. Okay. He really knows very little English right now, but he has bonded with the people. Why do you think that is? People love him. What's different about him?
What's different about him for me is, and just to set the record straight, his love for the Cowboys, his love for Lane Frost, and his love for anybody who does not know, he requested in PBR teams that song be played for him. But that is a guy that studied so much of our sport from afar in his home country of Brazil. And once he come here, he has Lane Frost as a hero to look up to. I think people relate to that, especially old bull riding followers relate back. And it's done a lot for him. But that is 100% in his heart that he feels like that's his way of paying homage to the ones that have provided him to be in the position he's in.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes him so relatable is how he has brought back the whole Lane Frost image. And it's cool that that's who he looked up to. That's the videos that he watches is Lane Frost videos. I mean, that's the coolest thing for me.
Yeah. He does the Lane Frost. He wore Lane Frost's chaps that have been in JW Hart's closet. Cody Lambert gave him a shirt that he's had in his closet that belonged to Lane Frost. I mean, that's for real. He wears suspenders because he watched videos, and the old pro bull rider Gary Toole used to wear suspenders, and that's where that comes from. And I don't know where he gets the as big a chew as you ever see. That guy, he can fit a chew in there, but
he can.
There is something really lovable about that kid. Like, there's a sincerity in his eyes and in his voice, whether he speaks any English or not. And people have really taken to it. I think he's a great champ. I can't see him just winning one. That's a bold statement. I know, but
I don't either. I remember the first time that I saw Cassio Diaz was at the Challenger Series finals in 2022, right ahead of the first PBR Teams World Championship. He was the Brazilian invite to the Challenger Series finals. And it was one round in a championship round. He didn't ride his long round bull. And he's been over here since that time. It took him a little while to kind of get acclimated. But last season in teams, we all saw, I mean, he was number 2 in the MVP right behind Jose. And if Jose would have stumped his toe, it would have been very easy for Cassio to be the MVP of PBR teams last season. He has totally transformed his bull riding since he got here in 2022 in a very short window. I don't think that it'll be the last world title that he'll win. There's no way he's going to go back to Brazil right now and take this world championship and the rookie title back with him. He's going to come even harder at the MVP race this year in teams, I think.
Yeah. Let's not forget, I didn't even mention it because could be the toughest bull rider ever. Had 5 fractures in his vertebrae, not structural, the wings of the vertebrae, but still something with his elbow, a broken rib and a slightly punctured lung. on Saturday night, and on Saturday night, 1 week later, rode and ended up on Sunday riding Ricky Vaughn for 92.5 points. I mean, I don't know that people can understand his pain tolerance for such a soft-spoken kind of a guy. That's a tough bastard. I'm telling you.
He may be the toughest that we've seen in a long time. That's old school cowboy mentality that we just watched from a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
We don't see it a whole lot in any sport and in this world, but that guy right there is something truly special.
Yeah. Again, naysayers. Oh, they wear helmets now. Oh, they wear, yeah. And Casio Diaz is a tough son of a bitch.
Yes.
All those guys. I mean, we talked about Sage coming back from injury and barely making it there. By Sunday of the PBR World Finals, going into the elimination rounds, nobody's really healthy.
No.
It's like the NFL. Nobody's really 100%.
There was 1 week between Louisville and the first weekend of the elimination rounds. There's no time for anybody to heal up, whether you have an injury or you have just nagging aches. There was no way for anybody to shake it off in a week's time. But to go through what that man went through from the elimination rounds to the final 4 rounds and go 2 for 4 and seal up winning a world championship. And oh yeah, by the way, you look at his earnings, $1.6 million.
1.6 million. Yeah, no kidding. Big year. So it'll go up. I think everybody's earnings are going to go up pretty soon. I mean, lots going on. There's a lot of good things with PBR, and hell, there's a lot of good things going on with Rodeo. It's good to see bull riders and everybody, cowboys. And for people wondering, the Kid Rock Rockin' Rodeo, every member of that team, the free rider, and I called them the bench warmers when they first invented that team, because keep in mind, they were all qualifiers through the WCRA deal, Corpus Christi. They didn't even get drafted. And they won.
They didn't even know they were going to be on that team until a week before.
Yeah. And every coach and every person right under 28,000 a piece, and got to see Kid Rock, man. I mean,
pretty special.
Yeah.
Pretty special.
Right. Yeah. You never met an MFer quite like me, in the words of Kid Rock. He was, and hey, in case anybody's wondering, he stuck around. He was at the PBR Saturday night, front row, smoking a cigar, drinking. Him, Cole Hauser, Dustin Lynch came Sunday. Jim Pickens, Chief Weber from Grey's Anatomy was there. I introduced myself to Dr. Phil on Sunday. Introduced myself, told him I was Sean Gleason's boss, and he laughed at me. But man, it's catching on. People are loving this stuff. It's kind of fun. So
yeah, and you think about it now, and as you've been a part of this sport forever almost. New talent, new eyes, new faces come around, and it takes the sport a little bit farther. I think Casio Diaz and John Crimber are going to be two that are going to really catch some new viewerships and just take us a little farther too.
Good point. And we need Clay Guyton back. There's a bunch of them.
You forget about Clay Guyton, Marco Rizzo.
Yeah.
2 guys that'll be back for teams, and it's going to be, now for me, I'm interested to see who's going to be. Okay, we know John's going to go first in the draft. We know that with the freedom having the first pick, but who's going to be? Where's Clay Guyton going to go? Where is Marco Rizzo going to be? He's hurt right now. That's what I look forward to now, is seeing how teams is going to transpire out.
Which you spent all last season in arena voice of the teams. We're assuming you're going to do that again. So I'm assuming, and wait, I'll say it. Yeah, Chris, you need to announce teams. There you go.
I appreciate it. I mean,
I'm your boss.
That's what I've heard too. And yeah, since you're Sean's boss, you can make anything happen.
I do anything. And you know what they call me? Big Papa. Big Papa.
Yeah. Well, they need to talk to your assistant about that. Naming rights.
Oh, trying to think if there's anything I forgot. It was good to see you. I'm glad you were a part of all of that. Anybody that had any part in that is a part of that big team. And it's PBR 130 full-time employees and anywhere up to 250 freelance independent contractors at one event at the World Finals. That's a lot of people that come together and put on a great show. And we brought people a lot of joy, I felt like.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think it was 2 weeks of the very best that the sport has had, maybe today. It can only go up from there, but you're 100% correct. The amount of talent that surrounds the PBR from everybody and the way that they work together in the big moments. I mean, it was long. It was a long 2 weeks for all of the hands, whether they're hands that you see, whether they're hands that you know, or the guys behind the scenes. It was a big job for them. And you and I know setup was not on their side once they got into AT&T. There was a lot of trouble to be had, but whenever it came down to the heat of the battle, that team comes together as one, like they do so many times over the course of a season. And it's truly amazing to watch the group effort that goes into making those events happen, especially what went down at AT&T Stadium.
No doubt.
No doubt, player.
No doubt.
No doubt.
You're the best, man. Thanks, bud. Appreciate your thoughts. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Anytime.